anybody in this group suffering at the moment with their mental health, or has suffered, or knows of someone that's suffered with their mental health?
I'd say it was about like second year of high school. I'd had like my first like proper full-blown panic attack. The first one was like a big, it was my whole body, like probably it was like one of the worst ones I'd had. But then it's like, I don't want to say small panic attacks because it's kind of like, well, the kind of where it was just like mini little episodes, but it would be like at one point at least a couple of times a month I'd have a day or a few where I just wouldn't be able, every time I tried to do something I could feel it flaring up and I could like start to feel myself panicking the way I did the first time. I was panicking about having a big panic attack.
Okay, so mental health, what is it? State in which someone's like, so stability.
Can you say OCD?
The doctor just knew like it was a general like mental illness of like anxiety and depression, but then he sent me to an actual like, well, he just sent me to the hospital for like a proper psychiatric person, and that it was pretty much, they just confirmed that it was severe anxiety and moderate depression.
Anxiety and depression.
Depression.
BPD and social anxiety.
OCD and anxiety.
Both myself and my dad have anxiety.
So the Children's Society is a charity, and since then we've sort of started to spread around the rest of the country as well. So we now have a mental health drop-in service for young people in Sandwell, which is what I work for, Beam, and we also have a Beam in Wolverhampton and in Shropshire as well.
At first it was like they gave me numbers if I felt like calling somebody, but because I was still kind of new to it and everything, I wasn't that comfortable with. But the doctors were very much prescription drugs to try it, and then if I felt like that wasn't enough, then I could call.
I think for me the biggest thing is probably expectation, because it covers really every part of life, whether that's pressure at school, whether it's pressure at home, maybe it's pressure or expectations that a young person holds about themselves. Any sort of expectations are going to add that kind of extra level of pressure.
So, in relation to expectations and going back to social media, because those two to me are linked, because people put on social media what they would love their life to be and how amazing their life is may not necessarily be the case, but then other people see that person's life and think, God, I wish my life was as amazing as theirs.
I suffer with anxiety. I think it's to do with like change, like I don't like change.
Right. Okay.
And like it started when I went to high school, and I used to panic, like I used to like cry every day,
Yeah.
and I didn't want to go, and I used to refuse to leave the house. And like when I started seeing someone when I was in high school, like counselling, and it did help me, and I used breathing techniques, and then I started to dance, and that used to help. And then it all went backwards again when I started college, and I used to like cry to get on the bus, and like I used to think like I'm being stupid.
Yeah.
Like, why am I crying? Like I knew in my mind like it's stupid, I'm crying to get on a bus, but I couldn't help. But like I physically couldn't do it, and like it took me a couple of weeks to be able to do it.
Yeah. And can I just say, well done to you. Do you know what? Let's give her a round. Because to be so anxious about doing something, but forcing yourself to do it. Forcing yourself to do it.
So September the 15th, 2017, I took her to the doctors because I thought she'd got anorexia. The reason I thought that is because I googled it and she ticked every box. September the 16th, she collapsed at home and was rushed into A&E by ambulance, and that's when it all started really. Unfortunately she was discharged on the Monday, so we had 2 weeks of complete hell at home until she was readmitted. First admission, she could have gone into heart failure due to the malnutrition, starvation, dehydration, etc. Second admission, she nearly went into kidney failure, and then she was diagnosed with anorexia nervosa, and she'd go into what I'd call a dark moment, and that probably lasted for 10 or 15 minutes, and over time it increased, and I think the longest she was in was for 2 days. So what happens is she either hides under the quilt and puts her head under. You get no conversation out of her whatsoever. She looks at you as if she's possessed, with hatred, pushes you away. Obviously she wasn't eating at the time, but that was the anorexia. But I used to look at it as, am I going to see Alessia today, or am I going to see anorexia? So as a parent, it's soul destroying. It got to the point where she had to be fed through a tube in her nose, NG tube. The mental health was then getting really, really strong. The voices in her head were just intense, to the fact where she was sectioned. There were several times where she was restrained by 5 people because she was pulling the tube out of her nose, and they were having to get it up because that was the only way she'd be fed. So she's on medication for antidepressant, mood swings, voices in her head. At one time she had somebody looking over her, so not only the voices in her head, she got somebody looking over her as well. For Alessia, it was that intense. There was nothing that could stop her, which led to self-harm. Now, when she's, I mean, obviously she's not better and we're still on a long journey, but she's made a lot of progress. But her arms, well, to me, I'm used to it now, but obviously there's marks on her arms where she's self-harmed, but she likes to show them for people to understand that she is still poorly. Alessia was supposed to be on work experience, but I had 2 months to try and arrange something. Couldn't get her anywhere, so she had to go to school. On the Wednesday, she went in her own clothes. I did say to her to put a long sleeve, because I do try, but it's 30 degrees, and she was going to help out with the year 6. And she got to school, and the next thing I know, I'm getting a text off her saying, I can't help with the year 6s, why not? I've been told that they'll ask lots of questions about my arm, because she had self-harmed on the Sunday, and it was quite a lot, although superficial. And I've also been told that I will frighten them. If you had a child with cancer who had lost their hair but was able to come to school, or if you had a child with a facial disfigurement, would you not let them interact with year 6? I said, because that's discrimination. We are still on our journey. She's made a lot of progress. She said, when it is so intense and those voices in my head are so intense, there is nothing or nobody could do that could stop me that self-harming.
I was worried about like exams, like what would I do after school.
Somebody would come in to talk about, say for example, exam stress, but then they'd be like, if you're worried about exams, you can do this. And it's kind of like, that would help the people who would maybe have just like a panic attack because it's related to that problem, but not the people that just have them for the sake of the mental issues. There was nobody coming in to support that whatsoever.
On the envelope, can you each go and line it up across the piano?
And you know what? Keep those envelopes for as long as you want, because any, like Deb said, any time that you're feeling a bit down.
Like if I was started to have a panic attack, I would have to, like, say for example, undo my top button to get rid of my tie, just so I didn't feel so confined, and I'd just have to accept the fact I'd get in trouble.
If a child has a support network, then speaking to someone is definitely better than speaking to no one. But yeah, it's whether we can all work together, professionals, parents, teachers, peers, our entire community needs to really work together. I guess there's that saying, isn't there, it takes a town sometimes.
When I was at college in that situation to begin with, I was like, just get through it. And then when I was on my own, I'd let them feelings come in then. It's like, okay, Ross, you're allowed to panic now, you're allowed to do this. And I got into like a really bad routine of forcing myself to push through and like bury down all the negative stuff and then just lay it all out when I was on my own. But then as I started to get to know more of the people around me and to know that they were supportive in everything, it was kind of like, okay, I am allowed to panic a little bit here because I know they'll have my back.
Not only are you a natural beauty, but you are also genuinely lovely, kind and a beautiful person inside and out.
Loving, beautiful, strong, independent woman, a truly good friend. Hello, is you
got style, boy.
Girl, you are a fashion icon, literally so goals.
A lovely person, so talented, you can trust with you in anything, you'll go so far in life. What?
Aww.
One of the worst cases I've had to deal with, when I was working in Birmingham, we were supporting a young man he was a refugee. He was awaiting status as a refugee actually, and he had lost contact with all of his family. The Red Cross were helping him to look for them, but they had not had any success, and it had been a number of months, and he had really lost hope. He told me that he planned to jump from a building in the Bullring in Birmingham, and he said within a month I will kill myself. I think he was 17, and he was just really hopeless. You could see that he believed he had absolutely no reason to live, and that was one that's really stuck with me, because family is really important to me, so I can see why he felt that there was really nothing. Well, we contacted the crisis team, which is a service that helps young people that are at imminent risk of taking their own lives. And they were sort of on call really, because although he wasn't planning to take his life that day, he had told me sort of within a week or a month that he would have done. So they were on call really to support him if and when that moment came. His foster family were really incredibly supportive, and we formulated a plan for him to go home, and he was going to help them with the cooking that week, to sort of give him something to focus on, and to give him a bit of responsibility within the family. And I think that having that focus and that support around him, even though it wasn't his sort of natural family, I hope felt a sense of belonging with them that hopefully gave him a little bit of a reason to stay around. And I know that he is still around. I know that he didn't take his life. So I don't know if I can call that a happy ending to the story, but obviously it's a positive ending from my perspective as a professional.
It would have been a child who has gone on to leave our school, but he was in Year 6, and it all came from home. It was Dad wasn't about on the scene. Dad had actually said he didn't want anything to do with the son, and that's what had sent him to suffer with mental health issues. So he was really erratic. When he came to speak to me, he would just flit from one subject to the other. He was very, very negative about himself and about his mum. He spent a lot of time with his grandma. He was probably the worst.
They don't understand me. They look at me and judge. They're too focused on what they're doing, and so they hold a grudge.
They don't understand me. They whisper, snigger and bitch. They're too wrapped up in their simple minds, they leave me in a ditch. Well, let us educate you. Here's an insight to our situation.
Maybe then you'll realise yours is nothing to our frustration. Life is hard for everyone. Some have it worse than others. But at times like this, when you are down, you need your sisters and brothers.
She's not talking literally. She's not talking about DNA. We're referring to the people, the ones meant to help you get through the day.
So far you've shown me nothing. Just heartless, pretentious behaviour. But that's okay, my mummy says. I'm strong without my saviour. So I won't quit, or fail, or crumble. I won't give you all the satisfaction. I'm back, I'm bold, I won't back down. I'm ready to take action.
When I was young, my mother told me that people in life will sometimes fall. But if I could, I should always stop to help them stand up tall. Take your time and be patient. Be loving and be kind. It does not matter how long it takes. You don't know what's on their mind. So take these words and listen. They're all just for you. You brush them off and fix their crown, because that's the human thing to do.
So to those who think we are people that go down without a fight,
that watch us fail and leave us struggling because they don't know wrong from right,
I hope that you're hearing this and thinking, could this be me? Because let me tell you, the answer's clear and it's quite easy for you to see. When life decides to kick you hard and square in the jaw, and you feel so low and ridiculed, like you can't do it anymore,
it will be someone who's just like us that happens to come along. They'll pick you up with a smile and tell you to be strong.
To not give up and to try again, reminding you with all their heart that you're a blessing, not a pain, and this is just the start.
Then you'll smile back and remember the times we've spoke about. When that person who needed help, you turned on and pushed out.
The person who was just like you, who needed someone to be there, who, because their illness was invisible, you treated like a spare.
So just remember before it's too late, that we're not yet at the end.
Hear our words, take our advice, stop and think before you speak.
Please, don't lose a friend.
What did you do about trying to relieve your anxiety?
I feel like talking to people and just trying to get myself into better situations with it. So what I'd usually be doing, I'd be like, yeah, okay, I can't quite do that. So it's like baby steps, like, I don't know, just going to ask somebody something, being in a room with certain people, and just pushing myself and just living and just, I don't know, just kind of talking to myself, like when I was on my own and stuff.
I found what helps me sometimes, it's very much like repeating certain things over and over again to just distract you and get like a new, okay, follow this rhythm, because I'm a Christian, so for me it was easy to just repeat the Lord's Prayer for myself, because it was just something short and it was something I already knew and it was something I was comfortable with, and I could just repeat that and it could help me bring my body back to normal.
It kind of started to get better after I generally started to do a load of exercise, because it was I found it like relieved stress, didn't have to like, it was something I enjoyed, and whilst doing that I loved to listen to like music. I still do this, like I always listen to music and then I could do that whilst doing exercise.
I use breathing techniques, and then if like I'm at home and like something triggers me to like feel that way, I'll just go off and I'll go dance and it all goes away because I'm concentrating on the music and my movement.
Creativity is a fantastic positive coping strategy. One of the things that I did at the Birmingham Drop-In Pause was we sat with a group of young people and did a creative writing group, and it went on for several weeks, and by the end we were able to publish all of their poems into like a little poetry book, and it was all sort of documenting, not documenting, but enabling them to express and, like how you said, get it out of your system and just get it out on paper. And these are things, we titled it Unspoken Words because it was things that they didn't feel comfortable to talk about, but they could write it down. And by the time they left the creative writing group, they wanted to show other people this poetry book, which was incredible, because I think just part of that journey is feeling comfortable to get it out of your system, but then want to help other people with your experience. And these are children that didn't even want to talk about it when they first came to us. So I think creativity and finding a way to tell your story is incredibly powerful.
Well-being, distraction, or exercise. So what else? What else can you do? Yeah.
Draw.
Yeah. Yeah. Art, creative.
Counting, like how many people in the room, how many people have brown eyes, how many tiles on the ceiling.
Listening to positive music.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with family and friends.
Okay. Anyone heard the saying, is it a problem shared is problem halved?
Hiya, my name's Meg, I'm 20 and this is my story. I think for most people their mental health gets triggered off at some point in their life, but mine pretty much started as soon as I came out the womb. I was literally like, I've got issues. It was when I moved up to secondary school that things started getting a bit harder for me mentally. I was bullied by this one girl who just made my life at school hell. It was horrible. But obviously this has led on to me having now a lot of issues, and a lot of issues have come from her. Oh, it's gone darker. So in like year 8, that was when I started to, I didn't eat my lunch in school because I was so conscious of what I look like when I eat, or what I sounded like when I eat, and that it was going to be picked up on. So I started bringing my lunch home and eating it when I got back after school, which eventually spiralled into an eating disorder. But the teachers just looked after me so much and they were just amazing, and I still go back to my old secondary school now just like to see them because they made such a difference in my life. During my GCSEs, that was one of my lowest points because obviously the stress and the pressure, and I was academic, so I think I felt a lot more pressure to do well because it's like people expected me to do well. But at the same time I was only consuming like 300 calories, so my brain wasn't necessarily working at its best. But I put the revision in so much and I came out amazingly with 18 A stars, which I think the teachers were amazed at because I was in such a bad place, but I managed to come out of it with good results. So I went to college. I mean, I had 2 years of pretty much being normal, which was amazing. And then 2 years on, that's when it got bad again. And it was, right, you're 18, you're an adult, you need to go to uni, you need to do this, which I found hard. But I did go to uni because I didn't really have any more options at the time, and it turned out to be the wrong decision. I lasted until Christmas, so I came home, and from December that year up until February I got very depressed basically because I didn't have anything left. I didn't see a future for myself or anything like that. And it got to the point where I'd have a panic attack at the thought of leaving the house. Here comes the nicer part of my story. In the following July, so last year, I had the confidence and felt good enough to go for a job, and the first interview I did, I got the job, and 12 months later I'm still there. And finally, something which this time a few years ago I would have been like, no, I'm not doing that, but something that as I've got older and I've been surrounded by people with similar issues, it's important to make sure that people around you know that you've got these issues and that you might need a bit of support in certain situations. So with the sun shining finally, I'm just going to round this up by just saying I hope people just stay fabulous, really. Thanks.
Don't try and make excuses. Think, okay, here's the problem. You stay in your room, stay in the house all day. How can you fix it? Leave the house. So I did just that. So I just started off small, and then as I felt more confident with being outside and being in new spaces, I'd walk further and to get more exercise in and to lose more weight, which it did help and it did work very well. It was hard though, because so many people do say just exercise, but it's when you're lying in bed for the 5th day in a row and you feel absolute rubbish. That's the furthest thing from your mind. So many other people tell you to suck it up and to just get over it, and it's upsetting because it feels like they don't care or they don't take it seriously. But sometimes you have to realise that that is what you have to do, because a lot of people have to tell themselves that with lots of other problems as well. Suck it up and push through it.
I want you to rip that up, screw it up, whatever you want to do.
And focus on being really determined. That's not who you are anymore, that's not part of who you are anymore, that's not what represents you. Yeah? Sure, you're right. Yeah. Okay, then I want you to put it in the box. As aggressively as you want to put it in.
I feel more positive with my future now, because I feel like I have a new strength to do it, a new attitude on stuff, because I pushed through and did the exercise. I tried to think more positively, I worked hard, I didn't just wait for it to happen, I made it happen for myself.
I first remember having issues with my mental health personally the age of 14. I'd found out I was going to be moving halfway across the country to a completely new place, leaving school and stuff behind, and then not knowing anyone, that sort of thing, and that really affected my mood. Started to spiral in the weeks leading up to me, and then the week that I was leaving, I had really intense suicidal thoughts, and that's when I first remember it being bad. September was when college was going to start, and that's when I'd meet people my age and get to interact with other people. But during that summer I was here, I knew no one. None of my stepdads or my mum's friends had kids my age, that sort of thing. So I was literally just isolated and alone. During that month I barely stepped foot outside my room other than to get food from the kitchen or to just go to the toilet, essentially. And everything just deteriorated, my personal hygiene. I just started eating and binge eating whatever was in the cupboards. I just eat because I felt that there was nothing else to do but eat. In the August, that was a first attempted suicide. I grabbed any and every pill I could find in the bottom In my kitchen you've got 4 drawers, and the bottom one to store like paracetamol, whatever my stepdad was taking because he had an injury at the time, or that, and I just took a bunch of pills, and then I ended up like I took a lot, and then I ended up just throwing up and then sleeping for a while. At college I had access to drugs and that sort of thing through obviously meeting and interacting with everyone you meet at college. It started off with weed. That's the first drug anyone's really introduced to when you go anywhere. Everyone at college smokes weed or knows someone who does or deals, and it's very easy to get hold of because weed's so widespread within the country. I could get served pretty easily alcohol wise, and then kind of went away from drugs because I was realising the drugs weren't as safe. It was the second time you could say I attempted suicide. It was more, I drank a lot and was proceeding, and I just decided, like, I was sitting there and I'd look, because I've always, like, I'd just take stuff, you know that drawer I mentioned earlier? Like, I'd just take stuff and like keep it in my room. I took out of the packet, I think there was 4 left, so I took 4 of them. Obviously I don't know whether that's enough to do anything or not, but right then, when I'm not thinking straight in that mindset, I'm just sort of hoping it is, in a way. There was nothing that set that off. That kind of scared me. There was no actual reason for it that time. I just suddenly leapt to do it. I didn't think I could talk to any of them. I don't think even if I could have, I would have. I didn't talk back then about anything. They're all lads don't ask each other how they are. Not at that age anyway. You know, 18's long enough, you know, I've experienced life. No one's going to be too mad at me for taking my own life, and I'm going to make sure it goes through it this time. And to secure that I did, it sounds so weird saying I was able to get hold of, but I got hold of a pistol through just back up north, like Liverpool and that. It's very, again, it's stuff who you know, and they're not that hard to get hold of. So I got hold of one with the intention of shooting myself on my 18th birthday. And I opened up to my girlfriend at the time, Lauren, about this. And she's probably the only reason I didn't at that time. Because we talked in depth. That's what helped me get sort of better during that time. It was like just having her. Obviously a girlfriend, someone you can talk to. It's not just a random person. Like when you do love someone, then it's not like you can open up to them. Like my issues got seriously bad towards around, because it was the anniversary like of that plan, like my next birthday, my 19th birthday. It was the anniversary of that, and things took a bad turn for the worse. Gone up to Liverpool for my birthday, you know, I'd had a great time and stuff. It kind of triggered something in me, and I knew Lauren was the only thing keeping me holding on at that point, and so I basically just threw her to the wind for the sake of, let's see what happens if she goes, like that sort of thing. And I do completely regret the way I handled that situation. Like during and afterwards, and then that led me on to more drugs. In a way, I believe I have like my demons don't allow me to be happy. They always catch up to me. I was ready to speak to people at that point, but you can get drugs a lot quicker than you can get help. So I chose the quick option, because of that, like, I was really intensely in pain. That's the thing, that's the scary thing when it comes to stuff like this. Like now I'm really aware of things, I'm really open to how I'm feeling, and I feel, you know, I'm content and stuff. But I never know when I could just take a bad turn. Like there was a time a few weeks back, nothing really set me off. I just had a little episode of just intense depression and suicidal thoughts, just completely out of nowhere. But you can get drugs a lot quicker than you can get help.